Good morning and welcome to another episode of Founder Focus from Startup to Stand-Up, the video series where we take a deep dive inside the mind of interesting founders to pull out tips, advice and insights for the entire founder community. As ever, my co-host Matt Mower is with me. Matt, how are you doing today?
I'm really good, Tom. Thanks. How are you?
Excellent. I'm happy as a sandboy and very excited because our guest today is Mr. Tom Fry, who is the co-founder of Built by Humans and a UX guru and expert. So, I love usability. I love all the world of digital interfaces, how we make them better, what that does, the whole world of behavior and online is something that interests me greatly. So, Tom, you are most welcome. How are you doing?
It's a beautiful Monday morning. One can't complain. It's a good week ahead. I'm looking forward to it. I'm really excited to be here. So thank you.
Right, let's get into chatting some stuff. Matt, you've got the questions.
I do. So, Tom, question one. Looking back, what was the light bulb moment that seems most significant at the outset of your founder journey?
So I suppose there are two. So I'll go way back first of how I sort of got into UX and why I think UX is important, and then I'll talk about Built by Humans and go through that way. So I suppose I started my career in UX about 2016. I was in uni studying business management, which I didn't really enjoy particularly. It was quite dry, and I got the opportunity to work for a startup, a small construction startup, 4 or 5 people, and they were looking for a designer, and I had no idea what I was doing back then. But I thought, hey, I can color in, so I can give that a go. So I jumped in head first, no one to teach me what to do, and had to sort of teach myself everything I know. And I sort of leaned quite heavily into the world of UX from there, and I realized I actually really enjoyed tackling complicated problems to do with usability. And that's probably where my meat and bones is. I love really complicated problems, normally with large sets of data. How do you communicate and understand complex things and make them really simple and intuitive, but also probably in a way fun to use so you enjoy using it, and obviously has a lot of added benefits for startups. So I started there, and I've carried on now for the last 9 years, I think 10 years I was looking back, gone through 28, 30 startups over that time, big contracts, small contracts, helping startups improve their usability, UX, and ultimately in the way their competitive advantage, because UX is a massive pillar of your competitive advantage. So that was sort of my light bulb moment in terms of getting into the field of UX, and it Built by Humans. For a little bit of context, if people don't know, Built by Humans, we run audits on usability and marketing. It's what we call a no bullshit audit, where we take a really realistic look at your product, looking at your product market fit, your marketing, where that's direction, what direction is that going, your value proposition, and then we lean into usability, so your UX, your UI, looking at your customer journey, all that kind of stuff. And we do that with the idea of giving you a new, fresh perspective on your product. Obviously, if you're deep in the product yourself, sometimes you lose perspective, and it's hard to say, okay, where are the problems? Where am I going wrong? And we provide that perspective, and we do that for companies themselves. But we've also just launched a new product where you can also do it for your competitors. So if you have a particular competitor in mind or a group of competitors you want us to look at, we can do exactly the same thing we would do for your competitors. And that sort of came from working with a lot of startups over the years, where sometimes they can't afford, a UX design for long periods of time to make, good, incremental change. And obviously, normally most of the people I work with are sort of long-term projects rather than sort of short, 1 to 2 week stints. So we wanted to build a product that allowed companies to spend less money in the short term, but also get a lot of value back. And the whole point of the product is we're not here to gatekeep it and say, once you've had it, you have to use us to fix the problems. We provide you all the issues that we've identified, also some of the good things we found as well, because obviously we need a bit of both. And then if we identify some problems, we'll actually just provide you the solution. In that, if we understand, for example, your onboarding is too long, we'll say, hey, your onboarding is too long. We'd recommend that it's maybe 3 steps instead of 5. Don't ask for credit card information here, maybe ask for it there. And obviously then you're free to take that to another contractor if you have a preference, or your internal team can do it. But obviously if you would like us to do it, we can come and do it. So we view it as sort of like an open product that you can buy. You use, get the value from it, and then if you want to use us, you can. If you want to hand it off to someone else, you're more than free to do that. We're not in there. We think the startup world, should be open and transparent, so we're not in the market of requiring you to have us fix it. So that's probably the light bulb moment. Is startups have budget requirements and caps, especially if you're looking at pre-seed, and we wanted a product that sort of fitted in there, and gave you a lot of insight, a lot of value for not a lot more money, and then you can go on your journey and make the right next steps, let's say. So I say that they were probably the light bulb moments that sort of got me into the field of UX and starting Built by Humans with my partner Tony. Yeah, that would probably be about that.
Tom, that's a really interesting story, especially coming from a construction background. I wish I had a time machine to take you back to the year 1999 when I was first getting into this industry, because my first job was also a construction related startup all the way back then, which failed largely due to not having someone like you. It was the first dot-com boom, 99 2000, and a product that really suffered from not having a good enough interface that people could work with, although we were much more limited back in those days. But you reminded me, you took me right back to the start of my career with that answer. So it just goes to show this UX stuff is universal. We've needed it since the dawn of the internet, and we still will far into the future.
Cool, I like that. That was really good.
Question 2. What did you learn from establishing or trying to establish your product market fit?
That's a fantastic question. I mean, in terms of my consulting generally, I found establishing my product market fit was largely down to finding startups who really understood the value of UX, and traditionally they were normally multi-start founders. So I found that the more businesses this founder had started and either successfully exited, sadly failed, or the myriad in between, the more they valued the understanding of UX, because obviously at some point probably it played either a critical role in the failure, it was something that they really found really good value in, and then obviously want to keep that going. So that was probably sort of like trying to find founders who see the world slightly as I see in terms of why UX provides value. And then in terms of Built by Humans, Built by Humans was, like I said, I think earlier, I came from the idea that founders in the sort of pre-seed, moving into Series A, are relatively limited on funding. Maybe they can't take on a full UX designer. They definitely don't need to hire a full-time one, and they can't also hire maybe a chief marketing officer, for example. And so we decided we wanted to build a product that would get us in, get us out, has a good looking product, a fresh perspective, and then leaves you a bunch of essentially like priority list tasks to complete that we think would be what would elevate your business from where you are to where you're going. And we found, in terms of product market fit, the best companies to make them best benefit from this are usually ones who've just raised funding. Because having just raised funding, you've got a lot of money. The question is, where do you deploy that cash? And obviously you can guess where to deploy it, but the best thing you should do is sit down, maybe get someone in to say, hey, if you put this amount of money into your UX and this into your marketing, you don't need to do this and that, because we've worked with fat companies and that didn't really provide any value. And so we found they're the sort of companies that benefit the best from it. And again, looking at that sort of maybe getting your seed funding, going into Series A. So that's how we sort of established our product market fit. It was really to help us start up to Standup. It was asking you guys what you think, and then all the myriad of startups we worked over the years and just refining that data set down.
Tom, on the decision to bring UX into a startup, do you think there's a problem that people have in seeing the commercial impact of UX and how it's really going to affect the bottom line? Is that something that it takes some discussion to get people to sort of realize just how much behavioral changes is vital to any kind of platform?
Tom, that is the key question, and that's probably the key question I try and answer, because yes, I think if you look at startup founding teams, and I look at a lot of About Us pages I go through, you'll see founder, whatnot, developer, 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 developer. You get loads of developers in, and it's like you're building something maybe you don't understand the user that you're targeting. And I think that largely comes down to people think I can design roughly how it would look. The building's the most complicated bit. But obviously, if you're building without an understanding of your user and how your user is going to interact with your product, you're essentially shooting blind on whether what you're building is actually going to provide any long-term value. The value I always say is, I'm essentially laying the foundation that says, if you build this the way that the user, I'm, telling you the user's thinking from the research that I've done and actually talking to your customers, they're going to enjoy using it, which means it's going to be easier if you go into a monetization model to monetize them, to upsell them, to get them to then grow your revenue. Companies that have invested in UX early on, I think there was a stat that said, you can get an 80% increase in revenue just for every, I think, £1,000 invested in UX or something like something along those lines. It was an incredible rate of return. It's just seeing that value can be quite hard. So 100% on. There is. I
think that's the thing is that it's risk. It's good risk management. That's the way I see it. And there's a very much similar parallel to me. People want to rush off and do marketing, and you sit and you go, if you don't have your brand sorted, your marketing could be risky because you're going to spend a lot of money and you're not really sure whether you're doing the right things for the right reasons sitting on top of that foundation. And it's exactly the same principle for you, is that it gives everybody some certainty that what's being done is the right way of doing it for the right reasons to achieve the right commercial outcomes.
And just to really pick up on that, Tom, my old LinkedIn bio used to be UX is good risk management. Because essentially what I'm helping you do is by doing it now, you don't have to spend a lot of money later. Like startups who don't invest in UX traditionally run into a problem later on down the line. Post building the product, getting it launched, realize people don't enjoy using it. Fixing it at that point is really expensive. You need to get a UX designer in. It's going to take more time because you have to look through the whole product now, and you have to re-engineer the whole product to maybe fit what you should be doing in the first place. You know, that's poor risk management, especially when you don't have the money to burn to be redesigning and rebuilding features. And the way I always tell people is it's like walking into a shop. A bad UX experience is like walking into a brand new shop you've never been into before, and just you're lost. There's so many products, you're completely overwhelmed. Costco is probably a really good example. There's so much in Costco, you get completely lost. You have no idea where anything is. And someone goes, oh, can you find the milk? And you end up walking around aimlessly trying to find the milk. Maybe you find it, maybe you don't. You don't get a very good experience. And UX is sort of going, hey, we've signposted, you want to find milk? Hey, tap here. Cool, milk's over there. I can now go straight over there. Saves me a lot of time. I see some value, and I'm going to come back again. So yeah, Tom, absolutely. Good risk management. Good UX is good risk management.
Glad we're on the same page.
Question 3. What support or resource has been most significant in helping you on your founder journey so far?
I suppose there have been two. I mean, there are two critical things obviously I do as a sort of solo UX designer. Is number one, networking. And then number two is obviously trying to grow my skill set. So the first one, networking. Joining groups like Standup Startup has probably been the best resource I've ever had, a resource and support I've ever had in terms of growing my ability to understand how I should do business development. And then obviously just learning a lot of other things, like for example, from Tom on some brand bits that he mentions every now and again, and during obviously the Standup Startup groups. And also just have really good space to bounce ideas off. Like for example, I brought the Built by Humans originally idea to Startup to Stand Up, and then I got a lot of good feedback on you should look at maybe could do it as a competitor tool. You could do X, Y, Z, and that completely helped us reshape the product and how we were going to go about it. So I'd say first of all, in terms of the business development side, something like Standup Startup, fantastic resource. But also, reaching out to people on LinkedIn. I've had mixed success, but the people I have met on LinkedIn who've sort of come back to me, I've had really good chats. For example, I'm deep in a chat with a guy who runs a offshore development house in Mexico. Really lovely guy, building that from scratch. We built a really good rapport, really good relationship. Hopefully we'll do some work together in the future. But just sort of learning from other people, meeting other people via LinkedIn has been really, really important. And then one of the final things was actually just talking to my clients themselves and saying, hey, what did I do well what did you see value in what I did? And then from that, obviously I got a good set of responses, and it's like, okay, now I can leverage that to understand how do I attract more people like you? Because obviously I've been quite lucky. I've had lots of good clients, very few bad clients. And so, it's sort of like, what are the good ones seeing value in me? How can I then leverage that and use that to advertise to more good clients, as it were? So, to sum up those three, has been groups I've set up to start up have been really good. Reaching out to just people on LinkedIn who have been commenting on some of my posts, and I've been commenting on their posts. And then the third one is actually just talking to my clients and just saying, hey, what value did you see, and how did we succeed together?
I think that last one's a really good point that a lot of people don't take advantage of, is going back and talking to people that you've worked with. And as you say, asking the question, why was this a great thing to do? What did you get from that? And we can learn a lot from that can help us going forward with other clients.
And Matt, honestly, that's you sort of hit the nail on the head there. The irony I always find is my job is to talk to your customers. It would be really poor if I didn't talk to my own customers. Sort of like got to live by my own mantra there. And honestly, it sort of transforms some of the way I talk to potential new clients from the old clients that I've had. And understanding, hey, you're in this position. Here's what you saw the value as. Okay, maybe I can use that to get new clients. So yeah, absolutely agree.
Question 4. What's the most surprising thing that's happened to you on your founder journey so far?
The first one to do with UX, at least, is coming back to, I think, one of the points Tom made earlier, is just the lack of awareness of the commercial benefit to it. And I think that largely what sort of surprised me about that is when I talk to a lot of really early stage founders, pre-seed founders, they're always like, I need to get Slack up and running, I need to find a developer, and like they miss this gap in the middle that says, got your tools, get a developer. It's like I sit in the middle there. It's like need a UX person, then get a developer. And what's really interesting, I think there's sort of like a mantra that says you need to build first and then fix later, which in some cases can work. But also, if you're building blind, you basically got a scattergun, hoping that you're going to hopefully reach something of value. And essentially, you don't have the money to waste. You've got investor money. You don't want to waste that money. You don't want to have to send an awkward email saying you've lost or you've wasted it. So that's probably one of the most surprising things, is how it's sort of undervalued, I say, and how the sort of mantra is always build, then fix later. But fixing later is such an expensive thing, especially in an industry like I said, where the capital is so tight, especially in recent days where capital is incredibly tight. So that's probably been the most surprising thing, at least from my commercial sort of experience, from my commercial side. And then probably just personally, probably the most surprising is how many really diverse and interesting people I've met in the startup community. I've worked in startups, like I said, for over 10 years. I've never actually worked in a big enterprise corporate, not something I particularly ever wanted to do, so I never went into that route. But how many really interesting people I've met who, most importantly, and probably most surprisingly, are always happy to help out. Like, I've met people who are incredibly busy, who run really stressful companies, and you send them a WhatsApp or a Slack, and they're like, hey, yeah, let's grab some time, let's grab a coffee, 20, 30 minutes. And I know how valuable 30 minutes is to them, but always happy to help out, solve a problem, chat about something, just sort of have a chin wag. So I suppose that's probably more of the personal one. Surprising just how open everyone can be in this sort of community. And I think it probably comes back to, at some point they had a question, they went to someone and was like, oh yeah, of course I can make 30 minutes. And they're sort of like giving back in a similar way. So I'd say that's probably the sort of personal one. It's just how friendly people can be.
Yeah, I think pay it forward is certainly a good way to go, and there's a lot of that in this community, which is great. Going back to your previous point, though, I think it's well taken that a lot of people don't understand the value of design. Partly because, certainly in the software world where I come from, they think it's easy. There's this idea that building software is like building a house, right? You've got some plan, it's got doors and windows, and of course this is what it's like, but it's never like that. And that sense that software is easy, and I don't know where people got this from, because they don't always think, you don't think, hey, I could just turn my hand at neurosurgery and it'll be fine. But when it comes to building software, they think they're automatically going to make good choices. And UX is potentially even dangerous from that perspective, because it teaches them about the poverty of their choices. I wonder if there's a sort of psychological safety angle. I don't want to know.
It's probably added this. One of the most surprising other things on the UX side is how many founders I've met have never talked to one of their customers, or have talked to their customers right when they originally had the idea or the light bulb moment, and then never talked to them again. And I've sort of found that absolutely sort of mind blowing, because there are so many founders I've gone, how many customers, like, show me your customer research, for example, and they go, well, I haven't really talked to any customers. So it's like you're building tools for people you don't really know exist, you've never talked to, and so you have no insights on how they think, operate, where they see value, that kind of stuff. And that's probably also been something that's incredibly surprising. It's just how many people don't talk to their customers.
Question 5. What's the North Star that you are currently aiming towards?
Good question, Matt. I'd say the North Star that I'm aiming towards is to help startup founders see the value of UX and how it can add to the business that they're either starting, running, trying to scale. Because ultimately, UX, the most important part of UX is understanding your customers, be that, the value that they're looking for in your product, the problems that they're trying to solve. And, UX can live in a really interesting perspective, because, we try to disconnect ourselves from the business as much as we can to give a fresh perspective as often as when we talk to customers. And we build up really good relationships, hopefully, with customers, whereby we can start to build what we call UX advocates, who will continuously help review features that we're looking to build. And then also that what that can do is it provides value immediately to business as we understand your customers, and we can help your roadmap as you're trying to build, scale, design your product, and help that smooth out that roadmap, and get rid of the annoying bumps where you build a feature that no one actually wants because you thought it was useful. And also what we can do is then start to reduce the burden on the business. Good UX means less customer support calls coming in, people going, oh, I don't know how to use that, I don't know how to solve that problem, because we've already probably run across this problem in our research. And so my North Star is sort of trying to package that in a way that you can say to startups, hey, UX is a critical and really valuable part of the growth plan of your business. And skipping it, as Tom sort of highlighted earlier, is really poor risk management, especially at a time where you can't really afford to take risks. Microsoft can afford to launch a product, it lose billions of pounds, and that'd be a footnote on their shareholder document they probably forget about and don't want to look at. If you're only raising £100,000 and that's all the cash you've got, it's not a lot of cash to make a few errors that you could have easily solved by talking to your customers and doing good UX work beforehand. And it takes away from some of the fun of building, but that's the North Star I'm working towards, is to help startups implement UX into their process and then grow their businesses quicker.
Brilliant. So, it sounds to me like you're trying to become a sort of genuine evangelist for the power of UX to transform business. It's not just about design. It's not just about does it look good. It's about, are you solving problems for people in a way that allows them to make progress?
Completely.
Tom, thank you ever so much for bringing us into your world and giving us some super useful insights into both the way in which we should be doing things and the discipline to see them through to build better digital products and services for people. Thank you ever so much for your time. We look forward to chatting more about this stuff, as everybody listening can. If you come along to the Startup to Stand-Up community, we have these sorts of conversations 3 times a week, every week, and we're there for the founder community. So Matt, Tom, thank you ever so much. And to everybody listening, we will see you next time.